Well, that's the view that we've got at Le Mans from the commentary box. I'm Matthew Roberts. Alongside me up here is Nick Harris keeping warm, and down in pit lane, Gavin Emmett. And just looking now, Gav, from the commentary box window, there is some blue sky poking through, but those black clouds, they're still hanging over.
Matthew, don't get too excited because there's rain falling. I can't believe it. All day we've had sunshine, but now the rain has begun to fall. All of the teams have two bikes in the pit lane, and none of them can decide which bike they're going to take out. I think some horrible dark clouds overhead, and it's real uncertainty for all the teams and riders now. I really don't know what they're going to do, because it's just light rain that's falling at the moment. Whether it stays, whether it goes, we'll find out in a few minutes.
It's the fourth round of the World Championship. It's at the Bugatti circuit here at Le Mans, 4.180 metre track. The front row, Valentino Rossi, Alex Barros, Loris Capirossi, and the 250cc world champion, Marco Melandri.
Second row, Max Biaggi, Carlos Checa, Sete Gibernau, and Toru Kawa.
The third row, Shinya Nakano, Norik Abe, John Hopkins, and Jeremy McWilliams.
Fourth row, the AMA Superbike champion, Nicky Hayden, with former World Superbike champion Troy Bayliss, Makoto Tamada, and Olivier Jacques.
We then have Kenny Roberts, Noriyuki Haga, Colin Edwards, and Nobuatsu Aoki.
In the very back row, Andrew Pitt, Gary McCoy, and making his debut here this weekend in the Telefonica Movistar Honda team, Ryuichi Kiyonari.
We ride with Valentino Rossi. It's strange weather, isn't it? Because it's almost, I think it's the camera can tell a bit of a lie, but it's almost a little bit of sunlight there as they come up towards the Dunlop chicane, through the chicane, and down the hill towards the right-hander.
I can tell you, Nick, here in pit lane, the sunlight's really not breaking through. It really does look very ominous indeed. But fingers crossed that it's not going to rain, because it'll be a fantastic race if it doesn't. But we always get something interesting if the rain comes anyway.
28 laps of this Le Mans Bugatti circuit. It's round 4 of the MotoGP World Championships. There's worries about the weather. Will it stay dry? The lights are now going to go to red. This 28-lap race will be underway any moment now. The red flag is taken away. Valentino Rossi, Alex Barros, Loris Capirossi, and Marco Melandri on the front row of the grid. A little bit of sunshine, a good start by Rossi, a good start by Capirossi, and not a bad start by Barros.
Good start by Barros, but it's Capirossi who leads the way into the first corner on that number 65 Ducati. Rossi follows him. Barros on the inside of Rossi into that quick right-hander that brings them round through to the chicane. Excellent start for, I think that's Norik Abe as well in fourth place, but it's Capirossi leading the way from Rossi, Barros, Abe, and then one of the Pons Hondas, Biaggi Orukawa.
We ride with Valentino Rossi. The man in front of him is great rival Loris Capirossi on the Ducati, and Capirossi and Ducati lead the way once again. Up the hill they come, under the bridge, they break for the right-hander. And here comes Alex Barros absolutely out of nowhere, late on the brakes. He runs it wide. Capirossi hangs on to first place. Barros, I think, is just hung on to second place. And Rossi looks all around him and say, where are they coming from? Capirossi, Barros and Rossi. And this looks like being a tremendous race. Let's please hope it remains dry.
Some really hard charging Yamahas out there, aren't there, with Barros and Abe, but it's the Ducati that still leads the way now after Barros just ran wide. He just managed to shut the door on Rossi. Rossi now in third place, on board with the Italian, and there is the rear of Alex Barros, just in front of him, that distinctive red of Loris Capirossi from the front row on the Ducati. Great start as well from Norik Abe, riding as a wild card. Probably his last appearance this season as a wild card, but he's just showing why perhaps Yamaha were wrong to let him go and not be a factory rider at the start of this year. Good ride from Marco Melandri as well in his second appearance, but Barros is in front of Capirossi. Barros on the Yamaha now leading the way. What a performance from Alex Barros so far, almost back to 100% fitness after damaging his leg in the first round at Suzuka, and leading this French Grand Prix after one lap.
Up the hill, the very fast right-hander before they break for the chicane. Barros leads the way. Capirossi second. Rossi looking threatening in third place. As you say, a tremendous ride by Norik Abe. But Barros, the last of the late breakers, absolutely flying. We just got a glimpse there of Jeremy McWilliams. We ride with Loris Capirossi. There is Valentino Rossi. But there's no doubt about the man that leads the way. It's the Brazilian Alex Barros on the Yamaha. Rossi in second place. Caparossi now third. Norikabe trying to come up the inside. Real confusion there. Carlos Checa is there as they tip into the left-hander.
That was Marco Melandri, wasn't it, up on the inside of Abe there as well. So Melandri then in fourth place, and Abe having to hold off Carlos Checa on that number 7 Yamaha. Melandri's teammate up on the inside, and it looks as though Abe's just got Melandri out of the way there. In fact, he has. Abe's up to 4th, Melandri drops to 5th, Checa in 6th.
1.5 laps gone. The Brazilian Alex Barros leads. Valentino Rossi second. Loris Caparossi third. The battle of the Yamahas rages behind them. What a ride by Marco Melandri just 7 weeks ago. He broke his right leg at Suzuka in Japan.
Max Biaggi up on the inside of Carlos Checa. Melandri now on the inside of Norikabe. What a ride from the 250cc world champion. Just his second appearance in MotoGP. Started from the front row, the 4th youngest ever front row starter in MotoGP. Behind Abe, Momola and Spencer, and he's riding the wheels off that Yamaha so far.
Well, this is more like a 125cc race as they flash across the line. 160, 170 miles an hour as they come into the very fast right-hander. Rossi second, Barros first, Loris Caparossi, Marco Melandri, what a ride by him. Abe, here comes Max Biaggi round the outside as they break for the chicane. Oh, great braking there by Biaggi, almost scoops up 2 Yamahas. In the end, he just scoops up 1 through the Dunlop chicane. Down the hill they go. Rossi now closes on Barros. Barros, as we keep telling you, is known as the last of the late breakers. He's not an easy man to pass, but if anybody is going to pass him, it's the world champion Valentino Rossi. But what a performance by the Yamahas after such a disappointing season.
Yeah, well, this circuit has always been good for Yamaha. Nobody seems to really know why that is, but certainly under the heavy braking zones at the end of these longer straights, the Yamaha chassis does seem to perform particularly well. And we all know that Alex Barros in pre-season testing was the one man who looked like he might challenge Valentino Rossi. It's not been the case over the first few races, mainly because he's been injured, but we've got a Yamaha down, and that's Carlos Checa. Checa's race is ended early. Disappointment for the Spaniard. He retired in Jerez 2 weeks ago. Now then, well, straight high side for Checo, wasn't it there, coming through that right-hander, just flips over the top of his Yamaha, but fortunately he's back on his feet. And that's one Yamaha that won't be performing well at Le Mans here this weekend. Checo finished second here 2 years ago.
25.5 laps to go. Rossi, that Yamaha at the front is performing well. It's Alex Barros. Then we have Loris Caparossi, Marco Melandri, as we say. We can't speak more highly of him. The 20-year-old who lives in England, the Italian. Right behind now, Loris Caparossi. Then Max Biaggi. Behind Max Biaggi, Sete Gibernau, who won, of course, the Africa's Grand Prix 4 weeks ago. Marco Melandri has got past Loris Caparossi. At the front, Alex Barros still fights off Valentino Rossi as they go through the chicane. But what a ride by Melandri. Max Biaggi is behind him.
Yep, Capirossi just losing pace now after leading the race at the start. Capirossi is now down to 5th place. Melandri's up to 3rd and Biaggi's up to 4th. So great speed from the Yamaha down the straight there to get past Capirossi. We know how fast that Ducati is, reaching 300 kilometers an hour at some points of this circuit, particularly going into that right-hander at the end of the straight. We're looking at Sete Gibernau and Toru Okawa both moving past Loris Capirossi as well, and Abe also. So Capirossi really losing ground now.
Rossi right behind the rear wheel there of Alex Barros, leads the way. Melandri, Biaggi, Gibernau. There's Kenny Roberts, the world champion, bought 3 years ago riding the 2-stroke Suzuki. At the front, though, it's Barros that still leads the way. Rossi right behind him. Melandri coming under pressure from Max Biaggi. Down in pit lane, Gavin, tyre choice could be vital. What have they made?
Yeah, I don't think tyre life's really a problem, but the interesting thing is you've got Valentino Rossi and Max Biaggi both have a front and rear hard tyre, where Alex Barros, who's leading the race at the moment, has a front and rear medium tyre. So that means his tyres are a little softer and probably go off a little bit quicker than the hard tyres of Rossi and Biaggi. It really surprises me that those two have gone out on the hard tyres. It's not warm out there at the moment. This track is old and it's slippery as well. But as they come down this front straight, Alex Barros is still leading the way from Valentino Rossi.
Yeah, Biaggi just holding off, Barros just holding off an attack from Rossi on that last lap. Rossi looked to get up the inside of him. No doubt that Rossi wants to get past Barros at the front and control this race, but at the moment it's the Brazilian, the 31-year-old from Sao Paulo, as we see Max Biaggi get past Marco Melandri for 3rd place.
So Biaggi up into 3rd place. Melandri is relegated to 4th. Right behind them is Sete Gibernau. Then a little bit of a gap, and we have Norikabe having a very, very good ride indeed in 6th place. But at the front, Barros doesn't want Rossi to go through. Biaggi has moved into 3rd place. Then Marco Melandri, then Sete Gibernau. Round the left they go. This circuit is all stop and start for these MotoGP machines. Rossi's had one go at Barros. He probably thinks, no, I'll just wait a minute and try and work out where I can do it again. Biaggi, Melandri, Gibernau. 23 and a half laps to go. It's dry out there at the moment. This is round 4 of the World Championship. And what a race it's turning out to be. Biaggi's had a great season so far. Marco Melandri, 20 years old, 250 champion, and Rossi does it again. Up the inside of Alex Barros. The last of the late breakers does not let him through.
You were just talking earlier on, Matthew, about how the Yamaha has always performed well here. That was thought to be, I think, because the YZR 500, the old two-stroke bike that was riding until last year, it had a bit of a higher ride height than the Honda. It was a bit more agile around these corners. The chassis was a bit better, and so they felt that, you know, that's why Yamaha always performed well. Honda, though, seemed to produce something almost out of the box that seems to go around corners just as well as that. And Rossi showed that so much that he is strong in the corners as well as down the straights.
Well, there's the battle for 4th place between Max Biaggi and Marco Melandri, the two Italians, and coming up strongly behind Melandri now is Sete Gibernau. The fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:37.345 from Gibernau on that factory Honda. He continues to adapt to that factory Honda after riding it for the first time at Jerez 2 weeks ago. And at the back there you will see the name of Kiyonari, Ryuichi Kiyonari, a young Japanese rider who's riding alongside Gibernau, now taking the place of the late Daijiro Kato in that Telefonica team. And there's Loris Capirossi in the pit.
Yeah, just to say, Loris Capirossi just entered the pits on the Ducati, so that's the Italian out of the race. Another non-podium finish for him. He's not having a good time of it this year so far, Loris Capirossi.
Another man down there as well, Gav, Nobuatsu Aoki on the two-stroke Proton. That's the end of the race for Aoki.
And this is a tremendous battle now for 3rd place. Biaggi hanging on to 3rd place, Sete Gibernau and Marco Melandri just behind him. At the front, Barros still hangs on. They go through the chicane. And another faller into the dirt. Oh, it's Bayliss, so both Ducatis are out of the race. What a disappointment after so much excitement in the early part of the season. Troy Bayliss loses the front end. It's not sparks from his boots this time. It's sparks from the footrest. Both Ducatis out of the race after just 22 and a half laps to go. And at the front, the battle still rages. Barros holding off Rossi as they cross the line. Fastest part of the circuit, a little bit of weak sunshine. Rossi thinks about coming up the inside as they break for the chicane. Doesn't do so, and it just appears that he's holding firm at the moment. He will strike. Can Barros fight back? We're about to find out.
Sete Gibernau's got past Marco Melandri into 4th place with the fastest lap of the race again so far, a 1:36.858. That's quicker than the pace being set at the front by Alex Barros and Valentino Rossi. Barros and Rossi both lapping in 1:33.3, Biaggi at 1:36.9 and Gibernau 1:36.8. So we could see the two Hondas of Biaggi and Gibernau close the gap on the front runners, Barros and Rossi.
We ride with Valentino Rossi. He's desperate to get past Alex Barros. He knows what's happening behind him. On the brakes comes Rossi. He's out-braked Alex Barros, has he? Yes. Rossi leads the way on the Honda. Barros, the Brazilian, relegated to 2nd on the Yamaha. They come down the short back straight now before they have the break for the chicane. Rossi is going to try and open up the advantage because he knows the chasers headed by Biaggi, Gibernau and Melandri are going to push him hard. There is Biaggi, there's Gibernau. Turo Akawa has now got past Marco Melandri. So Akawa, who finished 2nd last year, past the 250cc world champion. Now, can Rossi open up that advantage or can these men stay with him? With just coming up towards the start and finish, when they cross the line, there will be 21 laps remaining.
I'm just with Loris Capirossi now in the Ducati pit. Loris, can you explain to us what happened there?
Yeah, I don't say exactly what happened, but I have some problem with electric part of the engine. We switch off sometime, and the last time don't work and I stop it.
A bit more disappointment for you, but Mugello coming up now, going to be very important for you and the team.
Yeah, I think it's for our team, it's very important. I hope to have more good luck in Mugello.
Okay, let's hope so too. Thanks, Loris.
What a race that will be in 2 weeks' time with the Ducatis of Capirossi and Bayliss taking on this Italian stallion at the front, Valentino Rossi. And now that front group of 2 has turned into a front group of 4 as we half expected. Biaggi and Gibernau continuing to set a faster pace than Rossi and Barros and catching up now with Barros. Can Rossi make a break from Barros at the front? We will find out. On board with Max Biaggi in 3rd place. And there's the looming figure of Sete Gibernau, the fastest man on the track at the moment in 4th position.
Sete Gibernau, great disappointment, of course, at Jerez 2 weeks ago when he crashed out of the race, but he won the Africa's Grand Prix 4 weeks ago. That very emotional victory. That's the gap at the front with 20 and a half laps to go. Rossi still leads the way. Alex Barros hanging on there grimly on the Yamaha as they brake for the left. Oh, the rear wheel of that Yamaha just skips across the track. Hard braking by Barros. Biaggi closes up and Sete Gibernau behind him. Now Biaggi, Matthew, got a good record here at Le Mans.
He has. He won the 500 race here 2 years ago on the Yamaha. As Gav was saying, that Yamaha 500 works particularly well here, and Biaggi won that race. He's been on the podium here for the last 3 seasons, and he's been on the podium in every single race so far in 2003. So Biaggi, a really good bet if you're a betting man for an each way on a podium for Biaggi. There he is in 3rd place, but I'm sure he'll be looking to go one better than that. And he's keeping pace now with Valentino Rossi, as is Barros, as is Gibernau. Gibernau still the fastest man on the circuit, that time of 1:36.803, just around 1/100th of a second quicker than Rossi.
There is Sete Gibernau. He rode momentarily with Max Biaggi, who was just leading the way. This is at the Dunlop chicane. That's the gap from the helicopter shot. And certainly Biaggi and Gibernau are now closing on Barros, and certainly Valentino Rossi at the front has decided it's time to get on his bike and get away from his pursuers, and he's doing exactly that, because I think Rossi is very mindful of what happened here last year when the race was stopped because of the rain. I think he had a lot to do with the stopping of the race. He put his hand up as soon as the rain arrived. He's not probably too sure of the Duckworth-Lewis rule of Grand Prix motorcycle racing, but so I think he wants to open up a big advantage as he can. But it's a really good battle now for 2nd place. Barros just leads away from Biaggi and Gibernau, and Akawa going very well in 5th place. Melandri 6th, Abe 7th, Haga 8th, Nakano 9, Olivier Jacques 10th, Nicky Hayden in 11th place, Kenny Roberts 12th, John Hopkins in 13th place, Makoto Tamada in 14th spot.
Biaggi coming under pressure now from Sete Gibernau. Well, Biaggi's got to keep one eye on the front and one eye on the back, because Gibernau is getting round the outside of him there, is he? No. Well, I thought for a moment that Biaggi was starting to put pressure on Alex Barros, but it's Sete Gibernau now who's giving Biaggi the most problems. Gibernau, as we were saying, the fastest man on the circuit at the moment, but it looks as though he's been held up a little bit now by Biaggi.
I don't know if it's camera angle or what it is, but certainly Barros, Biaggi and Gibernau are closing a little bit as Biaggi almost runs it wide, doesn't he? Closing a little bit on Valentino Rossi at the front. He hasn't got away in the same similar fashion as he did in Jerez 2 weeks ago.
Well, now here's a surprise for you. The fastest man on the circuit now is Noriyuki Haga. As you can see there on the top left of your screen, that red helmet by the side of Haga's name, meaning that he's set the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:36.6. That's around half a second quicker than Valentino Rossi at the front of the pack, and a good second quicker than the man in front of him, Norik Abe. So Haga running in 8th position, closing quick on Abe in 7th, and he's only 5 seconds behind Rossi, so Haga has got a good chance here of getting up to the front group and maybe even challenging for a first podium in MotoGP.
Rossi probably got a bit of a hurry-up signal from his Australian pit crew, because the gap is just under 1 second. Biaggi still coming under pressure from Gibernau. Gibernau tries to pull alongside the Italian, isn't able to do so. Biaggi, of course, has switched from Honda to Honda from Yamaha, and he's been very impressive this season.
Well, he has. He's been consistent, Nick, hasn't he? He's been on the front row at every race apart from this one. He's been on the podium at every race. And he's been getting some extra training as well. I've heard that he's been training with the Monaco football team. He lives in Monaco, so it's kind of like a second home race for him here at Le Mans. But he's good friends with Didier Deschamps, who's the coach at Monaco, and he's been training with the team every Monday. So he's a good football player as well as Max Biaggi. So maybe those extra training sessions will be paying off here this weekend. At the moment, he's keeping touch with the leading pair, Rossi and Barros, but is Rossi now just starting to edge away? 1.173 seconds separate him from Alex Barros. And these two Hondas, Biaggi and Gibernau, really have to try and get past Barros as quick as possible, because it doesn't look quite as though the Yamaha is capable of sticking with that Honda of Rossi at the moment.
I'm just with Hervé Poncharal, who's obviously team manager for Alex Barros in 2nd position. He's having a great race so far, Hervé.
Yeah, that's really great, because after such a disappointing start of the season, you know, we are so happy to see Alex back on front. You know, sure, we've been working a lot with our bike and with the whole Yamaha crew in Mugello, but I think also the fact that Alex has a complete recovery is helping us a lot. But you know, he's trying his best. He's trying very hard, but he's a bit alone in the middle of the Honda pack.
Let's see if you can catch up Rossi and make a real race of it now.
I don't think it's possible at the moment. You know, if we ended up second or even, you know, top 3 position, we'll be very happy today.
Okay, thanks very much, Hervé.
Well, I think a few men, namely Max Biaggi, Sete Gibernau, Toru Okawa, have got something to say about finishing that position. Here is Noriyuki Haga in 7th place, and he really is having a good ride. This is an impressive performance, as it is by Marco Melandri, 250cc world champion. Of course, Marco Melandri coming under pressure there from Shinya Nakano, but Melandri, 7 weeks ago, he broke his right leg very, very badly indeed in practice crash for the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. It would have been his first MotoGP race, but here he is really scrapping it with these top men. Rossi has crossed the line. We look to see what the gap is going to be. It's 2.3 seconds. He's opening up the advantage. It's going to be a race for second place once again.
Yeah, this is the race for 6th place between Haga, Melandri and Abe. And there is Ryuichi Kiyanari. We mentioned him earlier on that Honda. He's a former Japanese Supersport rider. He won this Japanese Supersport Championship last year. He finished 2nd in the World Supersport Championship round at Sugo last month. And he's been drafted into this MotoGP squad as not a direct replacement for Daijiro Kato. It would be a bit harsh to say that. But Kato's factory bike has now been taken over by Gibernau. And the privateer bike, or the satellite project as the team call it, has now been taken over by this man Kiyanari. And he's making, well, he's just picking up experience this weekend.
This is the battle for second. Rossi's gone. There's Barros. There's Biaggi, Gibernau and Okawa. And Okawa also has got a very good record at this circuit. What, a 250 winner and second last year behind Rossi, who was then his teammate. So don't rule him out at the back of that pack.
No, he's got a good record here, Toru Okawa, as you're saying, Nick. He's got his work cut out here, hasn't he, to try and stay with Gibernau and Biaggi, because they've been setting a good pace. Although one just thinks that you have to get past Alex Barros now, and we heard from Hervé Poncharal, the team manager of this Tech 3 team, this Yamaha factory team, and he said that they'll be happy with a podium finish, and I think that that's very much the case, because there's 2 guys here looking to get past them, 3, all on Hondas, all on, well, Okawa and Gibernau on factory Hondas, Biaggi on a privateer Honda. Here's Jeremy McWilliams. Could this be the last time we ever see a 2-stroke in Grand Prix?
Certainly could be. He's currently running in 13th place, as we've heard. They want to run the 4-stroke at the next Grand Prix at Mugello.
Just to prove Rossi's dominance here this weekend, even after just 5 laps of the first qualifying session, he was doing laps of 1 minute 36, and that's race pace now. That just shows how dominant that he's got that Honda, and how comfortable he feels on it. He can come straight here. The spots of rain falling now on top. I don't know whether it's going to be enough to stop the race, but the spots of rain falling here in Le Mans.
Well, 15 laps to go then, and if the rain starts falling, we will get a red flag. The riders will come in, they'll get a chance to change their tyres for wet tyres and come back out for the final 15 or 14 laps. It will be taken back to the previous lap, so we would have 15 laps. We're looking now at the World Superbike champion, Colin Edwards.
I think he's currently running in 15th place, because I think that's Nicky Hayden, the current American AMA champion, just in front of him. This is Nicky Hayden's teammate, Valentino Rossi. You can bet the first spot of rain he gets on his visor, he will be thinking very hard about it. Barros still fighting off the Hondas, but you've got Okawa has now got in front of Gibernau. So the Honda Pons machines are now in 3rd and 4th place. And you just feel that Biaggi wants to get past Barros, but Okawa has given him problems from behind. So, as it happened before, he's got problems at the front from Barros getting past him. Now he's got his own teammate right behind him, and Sete Gibernau currently in 5th place.
The wind's whipping up around this pit lane as everyone gets to their feet as they come. And there are more rain spots falling, but I don't think it's going to be enough to stop it at the moment, but this wind could be bringing in more rain.
Toru Okawa just getting past Max Biaggi there as well, so Okawa now on the charge and challenging Alex Barros. As Nick rightly said, he's got a good record here, Toru Okawa. He won the 250cc race here in 2000, and he finished 2nd here behind Valentino Rossi last year. And he's got a lot to prove this year. He's not doing so great in the championship after 3 rounds. He's challenging Alex Barros now for 2nd place after just dislodging his teammate Max Biaggi.
There is Okawa, Biaggi and Gibernau, and you just sense the feeling that they've eased the pace a little bit, because they are worried about the rain as well. Rossi will probably make the decision. If his hand goes up, you know the race will be stopped. And the red flag is out with a cross. We wait to see what has happened. That doesn't mean the race has been stopped. Certainly the race has not been stopped yet, and we wait to see, but they still continue. And Rossi doesn't look like a man at the front with 12.5 laps to go that wants to stop the race. The race is continuing despite that white flag with the red cross, and Valentino Rossi still leads the way. Alex Barros still in second place, Toru Okawa third, Max Biaggi 4, Sete Gibano 5, and Noriyuki Haga is catching this group.
They seem pretty confident in pit lane that it's going to be stopped now. Everyone's moving back from the pit wall. They seem it's going to be stopped. Let's see what happens.
Well, we're looking at that white flag with the cross there. What that actually means is the neutralisation of the race, which was a new rule that was brought in this year. The idea was when rain comes at this point of the race, the riders would come back in, and then they would come back out for a rolling start. They call it race neutralisation. That rule has since been thrown into the bin because the riders weren't happy with it. This new commission. Rossi puts his hand up on a slight skip, and you can see why he's put his hand up. The rain is coming down. These guys are on slick tyres, and as the race leader, Valentino Rossi brings a halt to the MotoGP race with 12 laps to go. There's the red flag. Now the riders are going to come round and come back into the pit lane. That's where UAGAB fillers in.
Frenetic activity here. I was just in the Honda Pons team, and when Rossi put his hand up, they all threw their heads back. They didn't want this race to be stopped, but there was enough rain falling for Valentino Rossi. Down here in pit lane, it doesn't look like there's enough, but well, if Rossi's put his hand up, that's the way it's got to be. The race is going to be stopped. They're going to be brought into the pits, and we get another restart.
So the red flag is being shown. This will be 13 laps. The French Grand Prix, the first race was stopped because of the rain. These 13 laps would decide the outcome of the race. Valentino Rossi certainly is not ready. Only two men on the front row of the grid. Biaggi and Okawa start from pit lane. It's Rossi and Barros as the sun comes out. 13 laps, the French Grand Prix here at the Bugatti circuit at Le Mans. The lights go, and it's a very good start by Barros on the Yamaha as they race up towards the right-hander. Barros leads the way, Rossi on the outside, and Barros just holds the advantage.
It's a straight drag to the first corner as the three riders starting from pit lane, Biaggi, Jacques and Okawa. And this is where the track gets wet, round the back end of it. Through this chicane that comes after the fast right-hander. It's Barros leading the way from Rossi and Gibano, and Haga as well there in fourth place. Now it looks dry through the start-finish where the riders start from the starting grid, but as you can see, the rain that's falling is still there on the track. And this is a very, very tricky situation for these four-stroke riders at the front. Barros leading the way from Rossi, Gibano, Haga, Edwards and Gary McCoy, sixth fastest in the wet yesterday on the Kawasaki, and Gibano moving past Rossi into second.
Well, somebody's going to take a bit of a gamble in these slippery conditions. It could be Sete Gibano. Gibano has moved into second place. Rossi is relegated to third. Barros flying at the front, but just look at that Yamaha slide across the track. Look at Gibano as he breaks that slide. Rossi still in the third place. In fourth place, Noriyuki Haga. Just look at the spray coming up from the rear wheel there of Barros's machine. It's very wet, it's very slippery, and it's very, very dangerous indeed. Sorry, we ride with Olivier Jacques now. That's Barros's teammate, but Barros leads. Gibano second. Rossi in third place. They are taking it so carefully. This is a real feeling lap. They're all on full wet tyres, those three at the front. Some have gambled on some intermediate tyres, but that really doesn't seem the way because it may be dry at the start and finish. And here is Jeremy McWilliams in seventh place on the Proton KR. Now, Max Biaggi had to start from pit lane after changing his tyres very, very late indeed. Now on the pace.
They're not that far behind, are they? Biaggi, Jacques and Okawa both, or rather all three, went back into the pits to change for wet tyres. And it looks as though that move could have paid off because there'll be some riders out there on cut slicks who've taken a gamble. Cut slicks meaning slick tyres with some abrasions in them to cope with the wet conditions. And those guys who've taken a gamble not able to keep the pace of the guys on full wets at the front at the moment. Now then, will that gamble pay off? Will this track dry out enough for the guys currently at the back on the cut slick tyres to get back to the front, or will we have enough water to see these guys on the wet tyres stick it out? It's going to be very interesting. We've got 12 laps of it still to go. We're on board with Valentino Rossi currently in third place. You can see how wet it still is around that section of the circuit.
Barros still leads the way. Gibano in second place. Valentino Rossi in third place. That was a perfect illustration, that on-board shot, just how wet it is at that far side of the circuit, while it's really drying out in the start and finish line. 1.5 laps have gone. 11.5 to go. Barros still leads. Sunshine comes out, but still some spray coming from the rear wheels of these machines. Gibernau breaks a little bit later than Barros, but Barros still holds the advantage as they come up round the right-hander. We just look to see, but that's Olivier Jacques. We just wait to see how much spray and how much rain has been coming up into his visor. It does seem a little bit drier there, but it's still very wet, as you can see. You don't see MotoGP bikes going this slow very often, but they have to when the track is so slippery. But Barros leads, Gibernau second, Rossi in third place. A fair old gap then. Hager, Edwards, McCoy, Jeremy McWilliams absolutely flying in 7th place. Olivier Jacques, we've had some onboard shots on in 8th place. Max Biaggi 9th, starting in pit lane. And Otoro Akawa also from pit lane 10th. And Andrew Pitt going very well in 11th place. John Hopkins 12, 13 Abe, 14 Hayden. And in 16th place at the moment, Kenny Roberts riding the Suzuki.
I think we've seen Gary McCoy go out of there. He seems to have dropped off the timing screens at the moment, and Alex Barros comes down the straight now. So it looks like McCoy's out there. McWilliams, that means he's up to 6th position on the Proton and going very well indeed.
McCoy still is hanging in there, Gav, there on that green Kawasaki, just in front of Jeremy McWilliams. Well, there is a Kawasaki there, that's for sure, but maybe McCoy has lost his transponder or something there because he's not coming up on the timing screens, that's for sure, but you can see that he was there, wasn't he, in front of McCoy on that distinctive green Kawasaki machine.
Yeah, he was down there coming down the straight, all right, just saw him go past. I must have lost a transponder.
There's a crasher there, Gav, sorry. Makoto Tamada on that Bridgestone shot Honda. You can see Tamada there, he's one of the riders on cut slicks. You can just see his rear tyre, how it's very smooth, but there's just some grooves in it. And this is what happens when you do that, when you take that gamble. When the track is still wet, you really pay the price. And we really have two separate races going on. One between the guys on wet tyres at the front, this is it, between Barros, Gibernau, Rossi, and the guys who are chasing him, Hager, Edwards, McCoy, McWilliams, Jacques, Biaggi, and Dukawa. And then there seems to be another race going on between the guys on cut slicks who've taken a gamble that this track is going to dry out.
Gibernau trying to think about going up the inside of Alex Barros, as we said when it was dry as the last of the late breakers. It's even more difficult to get past, of course, in these conditions. 10.5 laps to go. They're through the chicane. Bright sunshine, but you can see the track is still very wet indeed. Barros, who won 2 MotoGP races last year. Sete Gibernau, who won the Africa's Grand Prix this year. Gingerly through the chicane part before they little short straight past the entrance of the pits, and they break for the right-hander that will bring them back into the start and finish straight. They don't really want it to dry out too much. They're on these wet tyres. If it starts to dry out a lot, we'll start ripping the rubber out of those tyres.
Well, you remember 2 years ago, Nick, at Valencia, that was the last race that we had in similar conditions to this, wet turning to dry. The man who won it, Sete Gibernau. Who did he beat? Alex Barros. They were riding 2 strokes then, of course, Gibernau on a Suzuki and Barros on a Honda. Gibernau now is on the factory Honda and Barros is on a factory Yamaha. It's the same 2 guys who seem to be able to cope best with these changeable conditions. Barros leading the way from Gibernau, and Edwards also using some experience there, and Hager. Great opportunity for people like Hager and Edwards on the Aprilias, McWilliams, of course, on the Proton, and McCoy on the Kawasaki to pick up some valuable points in these conditions. You can see there, can't you, from the helicopter camera, how certain parts of the track are drying out and certain parts are still very, very wet.
Alex Barros still leads the way. That left knee goes out. The left knee he injured 7 weeks ago when he crashed in Japan. Riding the Yamaha in 2nd place, Sete Gibernau. Valentino Rossi is close right up on them. This is a high-speed game of chess. Nobody wants to make a particular move at the moment. Obviously, everybody wants to stay on the bike. We have another faller.
John Hopkins is down. The American, well, half American, half English rider. He looks to be in some pain there as well. Hopefully John's going to be okay, but he seemed to be one of the riders who'd taken a gamble on cut slicks as well. Here we're going to have a look at it. Yeah, just losing grip on the rear, and he came down very, very heavily on his right shoulder, and his right arm looking very, very loose there. Perhaps a dislocated shoulder for John Hopkins. Let's hope not. But that certainly looks to be the way he's hanging his arm there. It looks as though that could be the injury.
John Hopkins out of the race, back at the front. You can see those dry lines. Alex Barros still leads the way. Sete Gibernau in 2nd place, closing up behind them. The world champion, the championship leader, Valentino Rossi, when they cross the line, which will be any moment now. There will be 9 laps remaining of this 13-lap French Grand Prix here at Le Mans. They're picking up the pace a little bit. Here comes Rossi up the inside. Thinks about going up the inside, and Gibernau decides probably best thing not to do at the moment as they break for the chicane. Barros leads. Gibernau, here comes Rossi again. Rossi has decided it's time to do something about this. There is Hager, Jeremy McWilliams running in 5th place now. The 34-year-old Ulsterman on the 2-stroke. Oxfordshire built Proton KR machine is absolutely flying in these conditions. There is McWilliams, he's the second one of that group. Behind McWilliams we have Colin Edwards.
Yeah, restarted this race from 12th position on the grid. Funnily enough, this 2-stroke Proton machine, which is making its final appearance, had a best ever finish of 6th here with Nobuatsu Aoki last year. It's never finished higher than that at any other circuit, so 5th place for Jeremy McWilliams at the moment. That would be the highest ever finish for that KR 3-cylinder 2-stroke machine, and how appropriate it would be in its final appearance as we await the arrival in the race of the V5, which made its debut yesterday in qualifying, Friday in qualifying.
They're getting in amongst the back markers now. They're obviously getting in amongst the people that have chosen those intermediate rear tyres, aren't they? And are finding it very slippery indeed. That doesn't help matters, but Barros still leads the way. Gibernau in 2nd place, Valentino Rossi 3rd. Safely through the chicane. It's beginning to dry out when they're on wet tyres. Gibernau looks behind him. Rossi in as close as perhaps he thought he was. Round the right-hander, very gingerly indeed. Barros, Gibernau and Rossi. Through the left, little short straight, and one of the Kawasaki's is gone.
Andrew Pitt, the Australian rider, former World Supersport champion in his rookie season in MotoGP. He crashes out of 11th place.
Over the start and finish line they go. 8 laps to go. The French Grand Prix reduced to 13 laps because of the rain. Alex Barros leads. Sete Gibernau in 2nd place. Valentino Rossi in 3rd. As the sunshine comes out. Now these riders, they don't want it to be too dry. They're not on the tyres if the track is dry. They're on wet weather tyres. They want it to stay wet. It is wet further down the circuit, but it does seem to be drying out as the sun keeps shining. Down the hill before they break for the right-hander. A lot of rain there, a lot of spray. That will cool the tyres down.
Jeremy McWilliams and Olivier Jacques have got past Noriyuki Hager and Colin Edwards, so McWilliams now in 4th place and leading that chasing group. A clear fight for the podium here between Barros, Gibernau and Rossi, but McWilliams, the veteran from Belfast, doing extremely well there on that 2-stroke Proton in its final appearance, and now up to 4th place.
How ironic is that? The final appearance of a 2-stroke machine in MotoGP. They can almost finish on the podium, and these 3 Grand Prix winners, world champion at the back. They're wily old campaigners. They really are treading very, very carefully indeed. As I say, they don't want to get into drier conditions because that will start ripping the rubber off their tyres. They want it to remain wet. Barros still leads as he tips the Yamaha into the chicane, and here comes Gibernau. That's the first time we've really seen him think about making a move. He's feeling out the track. He's testing out the conditions as they come up against some more back markers now. Back markers could play a very important part in this race. There is Jeremy McWilliams in 5th place, and there is Olivier Jacques in front of him.
Yeah, Jack just got in front of him on that lap, and look at the eyes of Olivier Jacques. He's very, very focused here in front of his home crowd. He lapped to 1:52.7 on the previous lap. That's around 7/10 quicker than Barros and Gibernau were doing at the front. So maybe now the sign from his pit wall board will be that they could be in his grasp. They are actually 14 seconds down on Barros, Gibernau and Rossi. But with this track drying out, anything could really happen.
Williams, 250cc Grand Prix winner, the Dutch TT, 2 years ago. The top British rider in MotoGP for many, many years, and what a performance it is by him. This is Olivier Jacques. You might see Jeremy McWilliams appear on his right shoulder or his left shoulder any moment now. But Jacques, the darling of the French crowd, currently running in 4th place. There he is, number 19 on the 4-stroke Yamaha. Behind him, Jeremy McWilliams on the 2-stroke Proton KR machine, manufactured, built, conceived at Banbury in Oxfordshire. At the front we have a new leader, have we? No, side by side. Sete Gibernau and Alex Barros. Gibernau has the inside advantage as they accelerate away. Gibernau surely is going to come out in front, still side by side. Now they break. The Spaniard does not lead the way. Barros gets back in front on the brakes. High-speed chest on a very, very slippery track. Barros still leads. Gibernau 2nd, Rossi 3rd.
Looked as though they'd almost locked foot pegs there, didn't it, through those corners, Gibernau and Barros. But Barros, as you always say, Nick, the last of the late breakers, and it takes a brave man on the brakes to get past Alex Barros, looking for his first victory on the Yamaha. He won 2 races at the end of last season on the Honda that Gibernau and Rossi are both riding now. Switched to Yamaha in the winter, became their #1 factory rider without a doubt. He was sensational in winter testing, and now looking to consolidate that promise with a first victory. And these conditions suit him down to the ground as Rossi moves up on the inside of Gibernau. Rossi now up into 2nd place.
It's like he's been unleashed from the box, isn't it? He's like the greyhound coming out of the trap. 6 laps to go, right time for Valentino Rossi to go. He won the race here last year when it was stopped because of the rain. The first part of this race was stopped because of the rain. He was not leading, Alex Barros was leading the way, but now this is a straight 13-lap race, and Barros still leads the way, but he'll know that Rossi is closing. Olivier Jacques still in 4th place. We ride with the Frenchman, the former 250cc world champion. Just behind him, Jeremy McWilliams. Noriega Haga going very well in 6th place. Gary McCoy now up into 7th. Max Biaggi, who had to start from pit lane, in 8th place. Turakawa 9th, and the world superbike champion Colin Edwards currently in 10th place.
Yeah, those are the only guys who are lapping under 2 minutes. In fact, the pace at the front around 1 minute 52. Barros, Rossi and Gibernau, and then Jacques in the 153s, McWilliams, Haga in the 154s, McCoy, Biaggi in 155s. Torukawa on something of a charge with a 153, Edwards a 157, and then further back in 11th place, Abe, Kiyonari and Hayden, all in the 2 minute 12, 2 minute 13 region.
It's this sort of race that really shows, isn't it, both Nick and Matthew up there, that shows what top riders that these guys are. Down the front straight and down this end of the track where the main straightaway is, the riders are having to ride like it's a dry race. They're going through the corners as fast as they can, but as they get through to the wet end of it, they're having to go through gingerly, having to go easier on the brakes. And basically, they've got to adapt on every single corner, and it just shows the calibre of the riders that are out in MotoGP.
Well, Sete Gibernau, we said Valentino Rossi was like the greyhound out of the box. Well, I don't know what you say Sete Gibernau is, but he's got past Valentino Rossi.
Not
but Rossi now up the inside, but Gibernau closes the door on him. That's more like it with just 5 laps to go. It's warming up, it's drying out. Barros still leads, Gibernau in 2nd place, Rossi in 3rd place. Absolutely anybody's race here at the French Grand Prix. 5 laps of the Bugatti circuit to go. It's drying out. They're on wet weather tyres. That won't make life easy for any of them. Almost side by side, Gibernau thinks about going up the inside of Barros as they break for the chicane, then race down the hill. It's going to be a very, very close fought affair. This is where Gibernau likes to get up the inside. Barros, though, he really blocks the move of the Spaniard. Rossi wants to try and go through as well, but Gibernau holds that inside line as they break from the right-hander. This is the wet part of the circuit. You can see how wet it is. This is cooling down those the wet weather tyres. This is just what they want because they heat up considerably when they get on the dry part of the circuit. They want to get in that wet. They want to cool them down. You can almost see the steam coming off them, can't you?
Yeah, just to explain why those rear rubbers tend to go in the dry weather when they're those wet tyres. We were talking last week about a contact patch the size of a credit card. Well, that's halved when you've got the tread cut into there for the wet weather. And that means that you've got all that horsepower going through half as much rubber, which is why it heats up so much. They need the water there to cool them down. If it gets too hot for them, they just start to rip apart.
Well, there are some more dry patches forming on the track at the moment, and that could be the key to the final 4.5, 5 laps as Gibernau moves up on the inside of Barros, and now Gibernau leads the race. Sete Gibernau, the grandson of the founding father of the Bultaco Spanish factory in Spain, leading the French Grand Prix, now victorious in round 2 at Velcome in his 2nd race on a factory Honda. As we look at Barros moving aside to let Rossi through as well. Now Rossi is going to give chase to Gibernau. Perhaps Gibernau has just thought, right, now's the time to try and make a break. The track is trying out enough.
Without a doubt, Rossi knows it. He's got to try and get past Barros. Barros, though, back up the inside as they break for the chicane. But Rossi knows Gibernau must not get away at the front. Immediately he made his move on Alex Barros, didn't he? As they now break for the chicane. 3 3/4 laps to go. Sete Gibernau leads. Rossi in 2nd place. Barros, who's led the way for so long, now in 3rd place. Down the hill, on the brakes. Barros, well, perhaps he's quite content to hang in there in third place for a little while. Just see how the conditions are and see how this race fans out. There's 3.5 laps to go. This is Max Biaggi, had to start from pit lane after having to change his tyres right at the last moment. And he's currently in 7th place, Max Biaggi. His teammate, Toro Kawa, is 8th. Jeremy McWilliams still going well in 5th place. Noriyuki Haga in 6th. And Olivier Jack in 4th place. But at the front, Sete Gibernau still leads the way. Valentino Rossi in 2nd place, and the Yamaha of the Brazilian Alex Barros 3rd. 3.5 laps to go. They're coming up against the back markers all the time. The track is drying out. It could not be more difficult for these top MotoGP riders. They're putting on a great show, and Gibernau chasing his 2nd victory of the season.
Well, I tell you what, this could turn out to be a great day for the Gresini Honda team, because not only is Gibernau leading the race, but his new teammate Ryuichi Kiyonari, who's making his Grand Prix debut this weekend, he's lapping in 12th position and is in line for 3 very, very well-earned points, or 4 very well-earned points. So Kiyonari, former Supersport rider, making his first appearance here, never been to this circuit before, difficult conditions, and he's currently lapping in 12th position. So an excellent performance from him. Equally, fantastic performance for McWilliams, who's riding in 5th. He's got Noriyuki Haga for company, but if he can hold him off, this will be the highest ever finish for that 2-stroke Proton KR3 machine.
3 laps to go. It's getting tight at the front. There's Marco Melandri, the 250cc world champion. Said he didn't want it to rain today after doing so well in the dry qualifying period. The 3 leading riders are over the line. That is the men at the front. Sete Gibernau still leads the way from Valentino Rossi. Rossi closes on the brakes. 2.5 laps to go for the Spaniard. Can he hang in there? Rossi's pressured him before in these sort of conditions at Estoril in Portugal last year. And Gibernau broke, he crashed. But he's used to riding at the front after we saw him win that Africa's Grand Prix in very, very difficult circumstances. And it was Valentino de Rossi, the man that was chasing him in that particular race. 2.5 laps to go. Gibernau still leads the way. It's drying out. I think they've dropped Alex Barros. It's going to be between the 2 Hondas. It's going to be between the Spaniard and the Italian world champion, Valentino Rossi. And I assure you, it's going to be a race to the checkered flag.
Well, as I was saying, Sete Gibernau, he's the grandson of the founding father of the Bultaco factory, Don Paco Bulto, and he grew up riding bikes ever since he was a very small child. And he can ride absolutely anything. He can ride dirt track, he can do motocross, you name it, he can do it, and that's why he's quite good. But like Rossi, when the rear tyres go off, Gibernau is good at controlling the bike. He doesn't mind if it just steps out of line a little bit. He's very confident with the front end. And that's why now, even though these tyres, as Gav was saying, they're wet tyres and they're running very, very hot in these dry conditions, he's happy and he's comfortable. And Rossi's comfortable because Rossi's moved in front of Gibernau now. 2 extremely talented riders now battling out in extremely unusual conditions as we go. 2 laps to go as they cross the line. Rossi now leading the way from Gibernau. Can Gibernau respond? Barros has dropped off the pace. It's going to be between the 2 factory Honda riders. Valentino Rossi, the series leader and reigning world champion, and Sete Gibernau looking for his 2nd victory of the season, only the 3rd of his career.
Through the chicane they came. Rossi certainly hasn't got away. Gibernau's close. Gibernau on the brakes up the inside. Here he comes. He can't get through. Rossi holds the advantage. This is the real wet part of the circuit. But they are on wet weather tyres. 1.5 laps to go. The world champion leads the way. Sete Gibernau in 2nd place. Gibernau comes up at the outside. They're going to break now for the left-hander. Gibernau should get in the lead. No! Rossi pulls across in front of him. Slides the Honda through. Holds the line. Doesn't run it wide. There's no way for Sete Gibernau through at the moment. Rossi still leads the way. The 24-year-old Italian. Gibernau trying all he knows to get past him. Comes in line astern. Just tucks in behind Valentino Rossi. He will be having more and more goes at him with 1.5 laps to go. This French Grand Prix here at the Bugatti circuit at Le Mans. That's the gap from the helicopter shot as they go along the little short back straight before they break for the chicane. Bright sunshine, the tyres won't like that dry surface. But still Rossi leads. Gibernau right behind him into the first part of the chicane. Now into the right-hand part of the chicane. 1.5 laps to go. Rossi's still there, and Barros certainly is not letting them get away. They break for the right-hander.
Yeah, Barros just clinging on to their coattails, isn't it? It looks as though he just dropped off the pace, but he stepped it up on the last lap, and he's certainly closed in now on Gibernau and Rossi. Whether he can challenge for the lead with 1.5 laps laps to go remains to be seen. You can see now how the track is drying out as they complete this final double right and into the start-finish straight. Rossi then, with 1 lap to go, leading the way from Sete Gibernau.
Rossi leads over the start and finish line, up through the very fast right-hander, 150, 160 miles an hour, on the brakes into the chicane. And Rossi is just opening up a bit of advantage. They're now coming into the wet part of the circuit. Gibernau closes up on the brakes through the Dunlop chicane. In third place is still Alex Barros. He'll be happy to finish on the podium as they come down the hill.
Barros is on an absolute charge. Look, a 150.452 on that previous lap compared to a 151 dead of Rossi, the race leader. So Barros taking half a second off them on that previous lap. Can he do it again on this lap? We wait and see. That's Olivier Jacques. He's in a comfortable 4th place. Ahead of McWilliams in 5th, but Gibernau has taken over at the front. Gibernau now up on the inside of Rossi in the lead. On the last lap, Sete Gibernau, the Spaniard, looking for his 3rd career victory.
Half a lap to go. Can Sete Gibernau hold off Valentino Rossi? He's opening up a bit of an advantage. Rossi on the brakes tries to pull him back. Gibernau, a man on a mission. At the right-hander at the far end of the circuit. Oh, twitch of the Honda's rear tyre there of Sete Gibernau along this little short straight. 2nd fastest part of the circuit. Rossi tries to position himself up the inside. I don't think he's close enough. Gibernau could win his 2nd Grand Prix of the season. Rossi on the brakes, closing up at the chicane. It's drying out there. They're through the 1st part. They're through the 2nd part. Little short straight. Right-hander coming up. We ride with the world champion Valentino Rossi. Up the inside he comes on the brakes. Rossi has gone through. Does he run it wide? Yes. Gibernau is back in front. 1 bend to go. Who is going to win the French Grand Prix here at Le Mans?
Through that final left and then just a double right to go. Rossi up on the inside through the 1st right. Can Gibernau hold the advantage into the 2nd? He can. Rossi runs wide. Gibernau through the final right-hand corner, just a short straight before they cross the line. Sete Gibernau wins the French Grand Prix from Valentino Rossi with the fastest lap of the race on the very final lap. Utmost respect from Rossi, who celebrates with Gibernau. What a victory for the Spaniard. The 3rd of his career, the 2nd of the season. And he's congratulated by Alex Barros, who completes the podium in 3rd.
What a race. 13 laps this race was run in the rain. Gibernau wins, Rossi 2nd. Listen for the cheers of the crowd because this is Olivier Jacques, the Frenchman, in 4th place, riding the Yamaha. Now we wait for the arrival of the 34-year-old Ulsterman, Jeremy McWilliams. He's been relegated to 6th place by the Honda of Max Biaggi. Well, nobody likes rain. Nobody likes wet races, but what a performance by these men at the front. They celebrate in MotoGP style. Sete Gibernau beats Valentino Rossi for the 2nd time this season with Alex Barros in 3rd place.
Confirmation then of the race result there from the 2nd of 2 races. Sete Gibernau wins in a time of 24 minutes, 29.665 seconds from Rossi and Alex Barros. Further down, a great result for Gary McCoy on the Kawasaki. Highest result for him by a long stretch. In fact, they're his first points of 2003 on the Kawasaki in 9th position.
One thing we haven't mentioned, Matthew, 3 Spaniards on the have taken the win today.
That's so true, isn't it? Dani Pedrosa, Tony Elias and Sete Gibernau. What a day for them, and what a day for Telefonica Movistar, the sponsors. Sete Gibernau dedicates his 2nd victory of the season to Daijiro Kato, his former teammate, that number 74 on his leathers there, the number 74 of Kato, and his teammate, his team manager, Fausto Grassini, on the outside of the podium there. For the 3rd time today, the Spanish national anthem. Dani Pedrosa in 125, Tony Elias in 250, and Sete Gibernau in MotoGP. An historic day for Spanish motorcycling. Historic day for Sete Gibernau, an integral part of Spanish motorcycling. His grandfather, Don Paco Bulto, the founding father of the Bultaco factory. Gibernau celebrates on the podium with Rossi and Barros. The French champagne flows at Le Mans. Gibernau wins in Le Mans. The 3rd victory of his career. Rossi 2nd and Alex Barros 3rd.